Take a picture. Hi,
Hi,
Mitali.
guys. Oh, wow.
Thank you for
Oh,
Skyping
it's
with
nice to
Bevel
see.
West. We have over 300 students that read your
Oh,
book, either in class or for pleasure. But we have about 150 here to Skype with you today. And it's part of our reading celebration. So
oh,
we want you to just kind of talk and be you for about 40 minutes. And then if you could give us the last 15, 20 for students to ask questions. Some of them are very excited to ask you different things about several different books that you've written. So thanks
right.
again, and I'll let you talk for, 30, 35 minutes, and then we'll let the students ask all the questions that they have. Okay?
That sounds really good, although I'd like to leave more time for questions and then talk more in my answers because I tend to talk a lot in my answers. So if I could just give you an introduction and then maybe have the questions, I'll talk a lot more in my answers. Does that sound good? Otherwise, I'm just like a YouTube video,
That
and that's
sounds
kind of.
great. Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah, I'm a little sore because I've been on tour. Are you guys all seniors or all grades or how? What grade are you guys in?
They're freshmen to seniors, so a whole
Oh,
bunch of mix.
oh, great. Okay, so I am back in the place where I went to high school. I was born in India, but we moved around a lot and finally settled in California when I was in seventh grade. And I don't know if you remember seventh grade, but I like to say that if they make an epic blockbuster movie based on anyone's life, seventh grade is when the plot gets weird. So for me, it was very strange because when I immigrated first, we came to New York a lot like the girls in the book. But what I didn't show in the book, the girls moved to New Jersey, but we moved in the middle of my seventh grade year out to California. And we lived in a suburb, and it was the middle of the school year when I started school. Now, I lived in Flushing, Queens, where there were kids from all over the world. But when we moved to California, the very first day of school was assembly day. And so the principal decided to introduce me to the whole school at once. So I brought me up in front of the auditorium and I looked out and everybody in the whole school was white except me. And everybody was born in the USA except me. And so it was a little crazy because my parents' home, I don't know if any of you have parents from another country, but my parents made these several big moves from the villages of Bangladesh to the city during the war of partition. And so I was born in the city of Kolkata. And I have two sisters, my two older sisters. My oldest sister's name is Sonali, kind of like Sloan, your teacher. And then, I don't know, Sloan, if your name means gold in Urdu, but Sonali means gold. And Rupali came second, and her name means silver. And then I came third, Mitali. Sonali, Rupali, Mitali. We all speak Bengali. And Sonali was the one who took me to the library when we moved to New York. My name means friendly, by the way. That's what my name means. So so we were growing up in New York for a while, but then in California, that's when it started getting crazy because my parents did not change. When you move in middle school, now you guys are almost done with this stage. This is an amazing stage of life where if you cross borders, before I say you're about 16, you have this amazing ability to code switch, to learn the new code of wherever you are very quickly, faster than your parents, faster than your older brothers and sisters. And so you can hear in my accent that I don't really have an Indian accent anymore. My mom and dad always had very thick Indian accents. So that's one of the things that changes fast when you code switch. So I'm sort of that middle generation of in the book. And I was code switching like crazy because everything at home and everything at school were totally different. Village India is not the same as the cities of India, which if you any of you have traveled there, there are tall skyscrapers and Starbucks coffee and fast motorcycles. But my parents are from the farm, so that meant it was very old fashioned at home. Dad came and we greeted him on our feet. One of us made him tea. The next made him, brought his newspaper. We always reported in. It was a very loving home, but very strict. And everything at school and home were different. Like clothes were different. My mom ground all her spices from scratch and sent lunch. and my friends had never seen anything like my lunch. So for those simple things to the language, Bengali, which is the seventh most commonly spoken language in the world, but nobody in my school had ever heard of it. To more say interesting or weird things, like when my sister started getting asked out on dates, and my dad was, when they explained it to my dad said, "Oh no, that happens after you're married, not before you're married," because my parents met each other on the day of their wedding. So if any of you girls are 17, you can imagine waking up one morning and saying, my mom got to hear that in a couple of weeks she was going to get married to a guy that she had never seen before. So that's, and they dated after they got married. So it got really confusing and fun for me. I don't know if any of you are the youngest in the family like me, but I really think it's the best to be the youngest, because by the time your parents get to you, they're all broken down and tired. So you get all these different rules and the second reason, and those of you, I don't know, raise your hand if you're the youngest in the family. Let me see. All right, so you know this is true, because it's really good entertainment watching your older brothers and sisters get in trouble, right? Yeah. So that happened to me a lot when my sisters would get asked out, and my dad would say, that happens after you're married. And then several times, my sisters were in college by then, college guys would show up on our doorstep to try to convince my dad that they could take my sister out. And these were always nights of good entertainment for me, watching my dad handle these guys. So my sister would be in her room listening to sad music, and it never happened. I mean, it didn't happen that my dad knew about it. One of the things about code switching is you learn to kind of have this life that's a little separate maybe from your parents in some ways, just to protect them. And so we did that. But so that was very strange. Senior year was very weird for me, because by then I'd made friends. Eventually people talked to me. It was very weird. The seventh grade, man, that was hard. Moving in the middle of the year, nobody talks to me. Everyone thinks that I'm this. The principal made it worse, or maybe it made it better, because he introduced me as to the students. He said, "Students, we have a new student from Asia. Make her feel welcome." And that was terrible, because, well, first of all, what the heck is Asia? It's a huge continent, and it made me seem even more alien. But the good part about that was I don't know if you guys had middle school bullies. Middle school bullies are the worst. They're terrible. And ours were all girls. There were 6 of them or 5 of them, and they really ruled the school. So they ruled PE, especially because they were big girls and they loved PE. And I was 7th grade. I was 11 years old in 7th grade. I don't know how that happened. But my first week of school, there was a PE teacher who would take us out in the field, and she would say, "Just choose teams, I'll be back." And then she'd chain smoke behind a tree the whole time. So this is when the bullies really loved PE, because they sort of ruled PE. So my first week of school, I watched a girl like me. She missed a basket, and one of the bully girls just tromped over to her and smacked her on the head so hard. It's terrible. And I wish I could say that I had the noble impulse of, "Oh, poor girl." I did think that, but my first thought was, I'm going to die at the school. They're going to kill me at the school. So I got my sisters to walk me home after school, but then I started noticing that I'd be at my locker and there'd be no adults in sight, and I'd be opening my locker, and then here comes the bullies walking down the hall, and I would think, "Oh my gosh, this is it. They're gonna smack my head into my locker." But I noticed that they would walk around me to get to the other side of me. And I thought, what is happening? So then a few weeks went by. Then I did an experiment. I would walk toward them, and I was little, so I'd like sort of look up, and they would part to let me walk through. I was like, wow. So I told my sisters, I don't know what's happening, but I will live. I don't understand it. No one's still talking to me. I have no friends, but I'm not going to die. So then I took it to the next level, and I'd walk toward them, and I'd go like that. Like that. And they'd be like, oh, they were terrified of me. I did not know what was happening. So eventually I did make friends, and turned out that the principal saved my life, because that was the year that the original movie The Karate Kid had come out. And so there was this rumor going around that the new kid could sort of kill her bare hands. I don't know. Anyway, just to show you how stereotypes can work both ways. So that was a very strange year. And I think that's when I discovered the power of stories. I was always reading. By the time I got to my senior year, um, I did not know anything about what I wanted to do with my life. I don't know if any of you have this great plan. This is what I'm going to do. All I knew was my parents were immigrants. They'd sacrificed a lot. I had three career options: engineer, doctor, and engineer. That was it. I didn't have any other, and I didn't like any of those. So the other things I remember about the other two things I remember about my senior year is that my last baby tooth fell out before my senior picture. So my senior picture is like, I had this big gap. That was really mortifying. I don't know what happened. I was a late bloomer. And then the other thing I remember, terrible memory, is that, do you guys have a senior prom or a senior ball or something? Do you have that? You do? Okay. So we were not, my parents had lost everything in the war. And so we didn't have a lot of money. So I worked my whole high school time. I worked, I babysat, I got a job. I was trying to save money for the stress, for the senior prom. So I bought this dress that I loved. And of course, when I entered the hotel, there was another girl wearing the same dress. And she was like 3 sizes smaller than me. So that was my senior year, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, lose my baby tooth, and then this stupid girl wears the same dress as me. So it was not a good year. But I did go to college, and then finally, I always wrote for fun. That was I don't know what you guys do to relax, whether you have an instrument, you're playing your music, or you listen to music, or you're watching movies. I don't know how you bring this stress level down, but for me, it was always stories. It was always creating them, writing little poems and things and words, and I just did that for fun. But who knew it was going to be a career? I guess only God knew, because I didn't. Got to school, college, finals week came up, and everyone's stressing out. And at my college, we had this thing called Primal Scream, where the night before finals, everybody would throw their windows open and scream as loudly as they could. It was the most stressful thing ever. So what I did was I'd sneak off campus and I'd go to the public library and I would read the same stories I used to read as a kid. And I just never stopped reading those books. I loved them. So still not dawning on me that I'm going to be an author as a career. I'm going to get my master's. I'm studying political science and public policy. I'm trying to teach, maybe get my PhD. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm still reading kids' books. I'm still writing for fun, but it's not dawning on me that that might be a career until I wrote my first book for fun and won a contest, and I thought, oh, good, this could be a hobby. It got published. And then I wrote my second book, and that book, I don't know if you get papers back from Miss Stone or your other teachers and it gets covered with red marks, and you think, oh my gosh, I got to change this thing. You get edited by your teachers or suggestions. Yeah? Do you have to rewrite it? Have you ever rewritten a paper? Yeah. Okay, so that book came back covered with red marks, and the editor said, if you change all this, maybe we'll publish it. And so I waited probably 6 months. She called me. It was the editor of the first book, and she said, Mitali, I'm sorry, we can't publish your book. So what do I do? Well, I sent it to another editor, and she sent it back with new red marks and new Post-it notes all over it and said, if you change all this, maybe we'll publish it. So changed everything and sent it back. This time the answer came by email. Dear Miss Perkins, I'm sorry, we can't publish the book. Editor 3. So I sent it, change all this again, changed everything again, sent it back. This time the answer came by snail mail. Dear Mr. Perkins, unfortunately we're unable to publish your book. So I'm getting discouraged. I'm thinking, but I'm still writing. I'm still changing it. I'm still working on it. Publish it for. So hold a number in your head of the number of times that I changed it and the number of times that book got rejected. Do you have a number? Okay, 22 editors said no to that book. I revised it 22 times, and it came out 11 years after my first book. So by the time when I held that book in my hands, I looked at it and I thought, man, Mitali, you really want this. You must really want this. And so that's when I thought, man, I put so much sweat, equity into this book. I think I'm just going to put out my little sign, my mental sign, and say, I'm all in. I'm going to be all in, and I'm going to try this as an author. And I haven't looked back since. That was 2006. So my 12th book is coming out in the fall, and I've taken a lot of hits. I'm not a bestseller, just selling author, but I'm still publishing. I'm still writing, and I could do it full time. And my parents are very proud of me. So that's exciting. Yeah. Well, that's what I have to tell you about my horrible memories of my 7th grade year and my senior year. But I'm happy to take your questions now. I think that I could answer more about it.
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Hi, my name is Audrey,
Hi, Audrey.
and I was wondering why you decided to choose to write about like the span of 3 generations, and you bring the distant near.
Right. So it takes a while for that big decision to leave one full culture and enter another to see the effects of that. It really takes several generations. So my parents, as I said, were that first generation, the strangers. They didn't change much. And I told you about their accents. So another memory I have is going to the grocery store with my mom, and she walked up to the guy and said, "Oh, pardon me, what is the price of these vegetables?" And I remember the guy looking at her and saying, "What?" And then again, she tried again, "Excuse me, what is the price of these vegetables?" And the guy's like, "Huh?" And so my mom took me, put me in front of her. I was 11, and she leaned in my ear and said, "Tuibol," which means you speak for me. And that was hard. My accent had already changed, so I kind of had more power in the culture than she did. There's these accent police in America. Audrey, I don't know if you notice in animated cartoons, or there's certain accents that are cool in America, and certain accents, or even video games. They have like bad guys are always sort of Russian. I don't know why we have these like stereotypes of accents. Smart people are like, "Oh yes, I'm from England. I'm extremely intelligent," and villains, and so Indian accents are not cool. So I think it takes a while for that effect of the culture to penetrate the whole family. Like, so for me, I was code switching, the second generation, but our boys who are older than you now, they are sadly, like, I'm Bengali American, 100%. That's my hyphen. Their friends are like, "Hey man, you're brown." They just get to be a color, like they're brown. What is that? That's like, or they say that, well, I'm Indian, but what is that even? There's 25 languages in India, so many cultures. So it takes a while to sort of show the costs, the losses, and the gains. So I want to show that. See, I told you I had long answers to your question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Aiden Thurnow. So,
Aiden, nice to
yeah.
meet you.
So you might have already answered like this a little bit through
Okay.
your talking you've done, but how are you and your life experiences reflected in the Das family tree, and you bring the distant near?
Yeah. So as I said, I'm sort of Sonia, I guess. You hadn't guessed yet. So I think that's where I land, but like a lot of my memories are in that book. The memories of going back to the actual land that happened to me, the memory of crashing the Porsche that happened to me. I like to say that I'll put a lot of memories in that book, but in my memories there weren't as many hot guys as there were in the book. So if you read the book and think that a lot of that stuff happened to Mrs. Perkins, but the Porsche did happen, and I ended up marrying the guy. So that's one thing that did happen. But yeah, so a lot of me's in that book, and that's why it's kind of embarrassing when people read it, because I put a lot of my memories in. I used to climb out on the fire escape and read, and my battles with my mom. My mom read it and said, "Oh no, you've put so many of our quarrels into that book." So it's kind of close to home, and I am that middle generation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Connor.
Hi.
And
Hi,
how much
Con-
of yourself had you put into the book, such as personalities and relationships?
The dad is exactly like my dad. Absolutely. Baba's like my Baba was. I don't have my Baba anymore, like in the book, but he was exactly like that. Mine lived a lot longer. My parents were married 62 years. My mom took care of my dad like he was a piece of precious china at the end. Imagine being married to a guy you only met on your wedding day. You stay married to him for 62 years. At the end, you just take care of him. That's your whole life's passion, is just to take care of this person. I watched my parents do that. So that's very much true to the book, my dad, even my mom, and how she changed. She really changed. My mom started going to church. Like, my mom started going to church. It just, like Ronnie in the book. And her political, she's a huge American patriot. She just loves America. So, and that really did change at 9/11 when she got all verklempt and crying watching the firefighter. Well, we all did. You probably weren't even born then, right? No. Were you guys around for 9/11? No. Oh, that's history now. That's bizarre. Yeah. So my mom was changed, and I think that. But the characters, when I write a story, I put in like people, place, and plot, and I kind of weave that together. So for me, people are pretty easy. Characters are easy. Place is pretty easy. Plot is harder. So I've been watching this thing. I don't know if you guys know Khan Academy. You know Khan Academy and online. So they have this thing with Pixar where it's called Storytelling in a Box, and all the Pixar writers give you tips on structure, plot. So this book that just came out, I'll show it to you. Yay! This one I tried to make much more plot. You can see the cover. I held it too short. Anyway, that book I tried to make really more of a page turner than some of my other books. So, but people are easy for me. I don't know. I like people. They're really interesting. Like, the thing I hate about Skype, that I have to stare into the camera. I can't see your faces, but I really love reading faces. And by the time you're my age, you get really good at nonverbals. You know, like every now and then my eyes are going to your faces and I'm picking up things. I'm seeing people in the back, and I just really love. People are so interesting. I like that. That's easy for me. So a lot of that just comes out of my own observations of people and characters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm really looking at you. Seeing all.
Hi, my name's Alyssa.
Hi, Alyssa. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Since you're Sonia, can you tell us about your Lou?
Oh, that's funny. Totally made up. Fantasy guy. No, I don't know. One of the good things about writing your own culture is that you can, when you write about someone else's culture, you have to be so like reverent about it. You can't really explore every culture has flaws. Every single culture has things in it that are just the raw side of the culture, and people inside the culture see it. You don't throw your culture under the bus to other people, but for me, one of the worst things was the shadism that is part of Indian culture. The idea that the fairer your skin, the more beautiful you are. I remember just my mom constantly telling me, don't go out in the sun, don't put on this fair and lovely skin cream. Even the other day I was at my mom's and watching Bengali TV with her, and every other commercial was for skin lightening cream. And it was you guys are just horrible, terrible. So that one side effect of that is it's really an extremely racist culture. It's changing, but it's racist. So that I tried to explore. One of my sisters dated a black guy for a while, but of course could never tell my parents or anyone. And my first cousin, who actually lives in Illinois, married a woman who's African American, she's black, and my aunt that was terrible. Just terrible about it. So that was really painful to see my family expose this ugly side of my family. So I kind of tried to explore Lou as, the guy I might have married, because I had lots of crushes on black guys and all kinds of guys. So that's something I wanted to explore deeply, because what happens when, the rubber hits the road in your family when you decide to marry someone or bring someone to the family. Then you find out who your family really, where the lines are drawn. It's all about who you marry. So you could see, I mean, back in the day, Catholics could marry Protestants, Irish people couldn't marry, other white people. There's always these lines around who you can marry or who you could bring into the family. And that, when you find that out, like who you kind of really know in the back of your head, who your parents would probably say, "Oh, so you're dating?" I don't know. Hopefully, they're really open-minded, tolerant people, but usually there's someone that's a little too far, and that's when you find out. So that's what I was exploring with that character was Lou. But he was great to write. He's fun to,
Thank you.
so kind. Kindness kindness is the new handsome. I'll say that.
Hi, I'm Audrey.
Hi, okay, Audrey. Nice to see you.
So, I was wondering, in the book that you bring the distant near, was Baba's death an accident? In the book, Baba says that if anything were to happen, he has a lot of money he could give because of his life insurance, and then he dies.
No, Baba would never leave them ever. They would never do that. He just enjoyed them too much. I guess I answered that so quickly because I know my dad. But he would take care of them. Dad always just took such great care of us. He was this, he had 3 daughters. When I was born, Audrey, that's another dark side of the culture is the preference for boys over girls. So I was the 5th granddaughter and no sons. When I came home, when I was born, my uncle held up 5 fingers, meaning 5th girl, and everybody just cried. So it was a very anti-girl culture at that time. Still in the villages it is. So my dad was always like, no, my girls are gifts from God. And this girl's going to be a blessing to the whole family. And he always championed his girls. And he just loved being with us. I hope all you guys have ever experienced this. My dad, the thing I miss the most is just how much he loved just being in our company. That was his joy. You'd walk in. Yeah, he was strict growing up. But now, like in these days, I'd walk in the room. His face would just light up at the sight of me. Once he called me in college, he was crying. I'm like, Dad, what's wrong? What's wrong with Mom? He said, no, I just saw a Hallmark card commercial where the dad and the daughter were doing this outing together. And he's crying. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have the happiest dad ever. But every time I walked in, my dad's face would just light up like he just saw the best thing on earth that he'd ever seen was my face. Even at the end, one of the last things he said to me, he just looking at me a long time, and I said, Dad, what are you thinking? He was 90 years old, you guys. He was so old. He could barely talk. But he was just looking at me with so much love, and he said, Dad, what are you thinking? And he said, oh, I like your face. I mean, that's what he said to me. So So that Baba would never purposely leave because he was too connected. One of the things about Indian Bengal, the strength of Bengali culture is the connections. You don't have just one name. You have like 25 names. Everybody an uncle will give you a name, an auntie will give you a name. And there's different names for everyone. You're so connected to the whole family and the village that the decisions you make for you, this culture is so individualistic. Like, it's like, well, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it. But that culture, the village culture, you don't just say I, you say we. So when you make a decision, it's not just about the I, it's about the we. So that's why I don't think you would ever have done that. Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
thanks for asking. That's an interesting, no one's ever asked that before.
Hello, my name is Grayson, and my question is, would you ever write a memoir?
Oh gosh, my life feels so dull. Like I said, I embellished it with all these good memories of great-looking guy. My life is kind of dull, I think. But people have asked me that. In fact, I was approached by an editor to kind of do a graphic novel memoir. Oh, I don't know. That seems a little bit much. I put a lot of myself into You Bring the Distant Near. I like to cross borders in my fiction. I like to imagine other lives. So I think I would find just focusing on my own life a little bit, there would be a lot of pride involved. To me, it seems like that. Like, oh my gosh, my life, let me tell you about my life. I don't know. Maybe other people do it. Maybe I'm just too, I don't know. I like to imagine other lives. Yeah, so I probably wouldn't do that, but who knows? I'm making a living at this too. So if that editor comes back and says, "Here's this ginormous advance, Mitali Perkins, write your memoir," I might think, "Huh? I told those kids at Belleville High West that I wouldn't, but that's a very very big offer." And I'll come back to you guys and say, "Hey, you guys, I changed my mind." But let's for now, no. Yeah.
Thank you for your
Thank-
time.
Yeah. Thanks for your question. Such a polite crew. Wow. Good manners.
Hi, my name's Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And I was wondering, what were some of the ways in which your own family adjusted to life in America?
Yeah. I think it was interesting because I didn't think my parents could ever change, but as I said, watching them change was amazing, especially later in life. We adjusted. Well, what happens is, like for my generation, I think there's a desire to reclaim your culture. So I actually went back to Bengal, and I lived there for 3 years. I lived in Bangladesh. I visited my father's village, as it's described in the book. So adjusting to America is such a strange place because eventually, we all start out hyphenated. Like everybody has these identities. Like I'm this, I'm blank American, or we have all these weird identities around these little tiny hyphen. And then I'm kind of sad because people end up being a color, just a color, like white. Is white. It's kind of sad. You lose like all the languages and cultures and people who came before you, and maybe it's okay to be color, but for me, the cultures are so important that I feel a little sad about that. So I went back and tried to find out more about being Bengali. And the amazing thing is I wrote a book called Rickshaw Girl a long time ago, and that was about Bangladeshi Muslims, the people that sort of my grandfather said stole the land from us, and he died angry, bitterness against your teacher I know is Muslim. So what's neat for me is Rickshaw Girl was about Bangladeshi Muslims, and that book is now actually back in Bangladesh, and it's being adapted to a movie by Bangladeshi Muslims. So my little story that came out of my heart, my past, now is being adapted by Muslims. So I think that's what happens as time goes by and things are healed. And so I tried to show that in that story, in that book, and how adjustments take time. People do change. Family systems change. So, and it's the moments, right? It's not in that book. You'll notice I don't talk about the deaths and the marriages. And if you open your family Bible, there'll probably be like marriages and deaths, the big things. But I think it's the little moments. So the book focuses sort of on the little moments that reveal how the family is changing. And I like the moment. I like the small things. That shows the adjustments, the everyday.
Thank you.
Yeah. I haven't had my coffee yet.
Hi, my name's Petey.
Beatty, good to meet you.
All right. So my question is, did you ever have a hard time remembering all your names? Because I got confused a few times in your book whenever you mentioned like more than 3 names for the same character.
Well, one of the things about code switching is you get to a certain, like if you're in a bad mood, when you code switch, you have to sort of translate for the other culture. And I was really pretty generous about that growing up with our names. People butchered my name. My whole life, people have butchered my name. This guy in college who called me Attila the whole time I was in college. Attila. That was how far he decided to come over. So code switching, you tend to do a lot of work for the majority culture. After a while, you get really tired of that. So, like I have coffee shop names. For a while, I was using Molly at Starbucks, and then my son said, "Mom, that's a narcotic. You can't use that name anymore." So I have to find a new coffee shop name. I don't know. I'm playing around with celebrity names so I can walk up and say, "Yes, I am Angelina Jolie. Where's my coffee?" I don't know. We'll make something up. So there are days though when you get tired of translating so much for the other people, and you want the majority people to live in. So I kind of worked that balance a little bit in the book with the names and everything. The names are confusing in all my books because I write a lot of books about people in other countries. So I figured, well, could be a couple of characters they would love, and hopefully they'll stay the course for that. Hopefully that was true for you, PD. There were a couple of characters that you didn't forget their names. Is that right? Is there a couple?
Yeah, I didn't forget their names. It was just like kind of confusing sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I tried to put that family tree in, but then that was kind of a spoiler because, and I put, one thing I did put is on the top headers. That was my suggestion, was to put the narrator name on the top of each person who was narrating.
Yeah, that
So
did help a lot.
Yeah, that was helpful. And then the audiobook, fantastic audiobook. 5 different actors, and they voiced the audio. They did an amazing job. I heard it, and I forgot I wrote the book. They were such great at adapting the voices. So I think sometimes audiobooks really help. I really enjoy audiobooks. They're fun. You can listen to them at 1.5 speed. You see how fast I talk? So I listen to my audiobooks at like really fast, and people really talk really fast. So I don't know. My brain's goes 90 miles an hour. All right, PD. Thanks.
Oh, thanks
Thanks
you.
for trying and sticking with the book. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
What do you hope this book teaches readers about family?
Oh. Well, yeah. That's a good question. Of course, it is about family, and of course, I'd want you to reflect on your own families. But I think what the reader wants is up to the reader. One of the mysteries of a story is that it really doesn't belong to the writer anymore. Now I love the movies. I don't know, Patrick, do you love the movies? Do you like movies?
Yeah, I like movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So have you ever gone to the movie based on a book that you like, and you get kind of riled up because the character doesn't look like what you imagined, or the plot changes, and you just sit in the theater and you're getting all mad. Well, that's because you're in the book. You get a lot more room to have your imagination interact with the story, the pacing of the story, what you want to focus on, what you want to get out of it. So I'm rereading The Lord of the Rings again for I don't know how many times have I read that book. And I was one of those people the movies were fine, but I got so bugged because they left out well, first of all, Aragorn in my imagination was so much better looking than that Viggo Mortensen guy they got to play that Aragorn guy. Forget him. So I don't know. I just feel like in a story, the reader really owns the story. And so for me as a writer to say, here are the 3 things that you should get out of my story, it feels too bossy. Like, I am the youngest in the family. I don't like being bossed around because I was bossed around my whole life. So I think when a director, you sit back in the movie, the director says, this is what the character looks like. This is the pacing of the story. This is the set. You don't get much room. Whereas in her book, you get room to be the boss of the story. So I would say that question really belongs to the reader, not the writer. And I get letters from kids all over. They make the most interesting connections to my stories that I would never have anticipated. From rural Iowa, a letter from a girl who wrote me once about a book where I had this really kind of obnoxious aunt. She wrote me 7 pages, single-spaced, about how much her stepmother was just like the aunt in my story. And who knew? I didn't know she had a stepmother, and I didn't know she had an obnoxious stepmother. Who knew? So, it's up to the reader, I think. But of course, explore your own families. And before your grandparents die, really ask them some questions about what life was like for them when they were. So just this is like just for you guys to know. But there's like 1 in a zillionth possibility that this book will be adapted for a TV series. And the writer who's writing the plot treatment for You Bring the Distant Near is starting it with Ronnie being age 17 in the village. And so I really liked that, because I think to know what your grandparents' life was like when they were your age, the time goes by fast, and we don't have my dad anymore. So if you have grandparents, I would say just, try to listen to their stories and figure out what life was like for them, because that season goes by fast and then you don't have them anymore. So while you have them, I'd say get their stories.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Mitali.
Hi.
I'm Maya Elamine. You liked my tweet that one time when I had hair.
Oh, yeah. Maya, your name means love in Bengali. Did you know that?
Yeah, I also know that my actual name, Kamaya, means wish in Hindu. So,
Oh,
and my last name L means the trustworthy. Fun fact.
so your name means wish, trustworthy, together like that?
Yes, ma'am.
Love your name, man. I think names are really, you gotta live up to your name.
Yeah.
I gotta be friendly all the time. What a drag.
All right. So my question would be for today. Could you explain the editing process to your original story for You Bring the Distant Near?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love your hair, by the way, and it reminds me of my character Cat. I love the hair. So what editing process? Yeah, that book was amazing because I have struggled in my career. I've never had a bestseller. My book's been rejected so many times. So that book, for some reason, I don't know why, a lot of editors were interested in it. I had written just 3 chapters. So my agent, who works for me, I have an agent who sends my books out. She gets 15% of everything I make. So that's how an agent works. She's lovely, wonderful. She really believes in me. Sent it, and she had a lot of editors who were interested in it. So she actually asked them for how they would see the book changing, what they envisioned for the book editorially. And that was fun just to see how different editors took. So I got to pick the editor. Well, first of all, it went to auction, so they all made money offers. And I tell you, it's a living, right? So I was looking at the money offers and also what the editors wanted. So I kind of knew what direction my editor was going to go in, but I still had to write all the rest of it. I had to write it. I only had 3. The book went to auction with 3 chapters. And then I was panicked. And also, they bought 2 novels and 2 picture books. So this novel is the second one of that contract. I mean, it was crazy. So I had to sit down and write it. So then when I wrote it, she actually didn't have a very heavy hand in the editing. But she did count a lot of things. The book goes back and forth many times, and it's really helpful because you can think of every word I write is divinely inspired by God above, and no, you shouldn't change anything. But no, most of what I write is crap. The first draft. So thank goodness for an editor who says, "No, honey, you could do better." So it goes back and forth a lot. And the proofreader at the end catches a ton of mistakes. I'm so bummed because this book, I just finished looking through it, has 2 typos in it. Oh, they bug me. But it's a team effort. Definitely the publisher that puts a lot of eyes on it and asks questions about different. She's really good because she studied post-colonial literature, so she asked a lot of power questions that really helped me. Like, does this outside character really have to save the day? Or just really good questions that we get focused on justice. She's got good questions about justice. All right, Maya. Good to see you not on Twitter, but on live. Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Camera. Maybe someday real life. You're so prepared. You guys have this boom. Yeah. All right. Hi.
Hi, I'm Avery.
Hi, Avery.
So I was wondering what inspired you to start writing, or was there a certain book that made you want to write?
You guys are actually the most writing generation I've ever seen. All of you really need to know how to use words well because you're online all the time. You've seen how everybody's texting, everybody's adding captions to your Snapchats, or you just know that words can really have influence, and all of you are doing it. So when I was growing up, not very many of us wrote, and I just love words. I just think they are really powerful. They can build up, they can tear down. If you listen to a comedian, a good comedian, in a joke, listen carefully to see if at the end of the joke, the person or people that person is making fun of, if you feel closer to them or if you feel like they're more foreign. Because a good comedian may not even pay attention to how you feel about that, but they'll either use. So that's what words and stories can do. They can make you feel closer, or they can shred you. So governments have hired storytellers to write propaganda to make you hate people, especially children. And by the time you're 10, 11, 12, if you've heard enough stories about such and such kind of people that are really negative, it'll be really hard to uproot that hate out of your heart. So stories are really powerful, and I think I just always really enjoyed that. But you guys, you have to. Most of you have to know how to tell stories. Companies are into story. Everybody's into stories now. Even video games are. You have to have a good story arc. Or when you go in to ask your job for a boss or your boss for a raise, if you could shape your question in a story, it's gonna be more. You're gonna have more clout. So I think all of you are really. It's necessary for this generation to really learn to understand the power of a story, even if you don't become a writer, more so than my generation. But I always loved it because I really did believe it changed hearts and minds. Changed mine, for sure. Did I answer your question? Or go off on some weird riff? Oh, okay, good. All right, thanks. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mason.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. What is your favorite part about the writing process?
Let's see. The beginning and the end. The middle is just agony, torture. I hate it. So I go to coffee shops to write. I like the buzz. There's an app on your phone now you can download that has a coffee shop buzz background. Some people really like that creative. So I do write in coffee shops. I turn off the internet, and I do something called a 10-minute burst. Have any of you heard of that? It's this. I read it in the book, The Power of Habit. I think it's the latest neuroscience that shows that if you do anything for 10 minutes, if you make yourself do anything for 10 minutes, either don't do what you want to do, like let's say you're, a smoker and you want to quit. If you push for 10 minutes not to smoke, it really builds your willpower. It's the same in doing something that you don't want to do. So when I go to the coffee shop, the last thing I want to do is write my dumb and stupid idiotic book, which I hate so much right now because it's just stuck and I don't know what's going to happen and I got to finish this thing. And it's like, it feels like finals week all the time at the middle. And so I'd say, okay, Mitali, set your Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes. And then I just write and I give myself permission to write horribly, like just terrible. And, but I write. I just let the words just, let the words fall out. I let the words just go out. And what happens after 10 minutes is kind of amazing. It's this brain thing that if you do what you don't want to do for 10 minutes, or you don't do what you do want to do for 10 minutes, there's this brain breakthrough. Your brain has this big, like it either builds, this willpower builds, or you get this burst of creative energy after 10 minutes. So if any of you are stuck, you don't want to study, you don't want to practice your instrument, or you want to quit a habit that you know is bad for you, try this 10-minute thing. It's really pretty powerful to trick your brain into doing something it really doesn't want to do. So I do that a lot, trick my brain, because in the middle, that's the worst. That's the hardest. The book goes crazy. Like, I don't know where it's going, and who are these characters, and why are they saying these things, and what's wrong with them? I don't like them anymore. So it's not fun. It's hard work. It's hard work to finish a book. Every time when I finish a book, I think, oh my gosh, it's like a miracle to me that I was able to finish it. Because I remember in the middle how it seemed like I would never gonna be able to do it. Every single one, all 12 of them, I'm like, this is not gonna happen. I'm not gonna finish this. And then I do. So it's kind of a miracle. It's hard, but it's fun. Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
I see the flaws in all my books, but oh well. Yeah, you're welcome.
So we have about 3 more minutes, and we have one final question for you.
Oh, it's so good to see you, son.
Yes, it's great to see you, and hopefully at Allen we can meet up again.
See that? Let's have lunch or something. That'd be fun.
Hi, my name is Haley.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Last question, so I'm excited.
So most of us here today have read You Bring the Distant Near. Could you tell us a little more about your new book, Forward Me Back to You?
Oh, okay. So this one has 2 characters. It's got there's a boy named Robin and a girl named Kat. And Kat, it's a hard book to read in some ways because it's about trauma that happens in the past. So Robbie is adopted internationally. He's been adopted by this very wealthy Boston family, white, and he's of course Indian, born in Kolkata. And his birth mother, no idea who she is. And Kat's had this terrible thing happen to her, so her mother sends her to Boston to get away from her school because the school is just toxic for her right now. So she goes to Boston, and she lives with this woman called Grandma V from Sierra Leone. and Grandma V says, "Hey, I've got this friend named Robin. You really should meet." And so they meet, and they meet in their church youth group, and their church youth group's deciding to go to Kolkata for the summer to work with victims of trafficking, and so they decide to go, both of them, for different reasons. They really kind of go for the wrong reasons, and they become friends. It's a story of their friendship, how their friendship, because I really like friendships between guys and girls that don't really involve any of that weird stuff that happens. I really like, I have good friends that are guys, and so I wrote about how their friendship really helps them move forward, because they can't go back in time. You can't go back in time to fix whatever happened to you, but you can move forward. And so the book's called Forward Me Back to You, and how that summer in Kolkata, their friendship really helps them figure out how they can move forward. And as I said, I tried to make it exciting. So,
Well, I know I read it, and a couple of my students read it, and they loved it. We have
Oh,
about
good.
30 seconds until the bell rings, and we just want to thank you so much for Skyping with us. We loved your books, and we hope you keep writing.
thank you guys so much. Thanks for giving me the time. I love being with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nice. Maybe next year. Bye.
Bye.